Welcome to Engage,
where we are inspired by Jesus impacting our city and the world.
Living this way is an art form that is best when practiced together. We do this together by resisting apathy,
Welcoming everyone and making sure no one is left out.
participating in remedying the concerns of those around us and around the world.
Telling our stories, and just by actually being, eating, and doing life together.
We believe that every day is another chance to live by faith
Labor in love.
and endure with hope. Join us, create with us,
as we follow the brushstrokes of the Creator. Welcome to Engage.
What is up, Engage fam? If you don't know me, my name's Rachel Larson, and I am the ministry coordinator here in Engage South KC. And to start my message, I want you to think about a time that you had to be brave. And I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to think about all the emotions that you felt in that moment. I want you to think about the thoughts that were running through your head. And I also want you to think about how you felt and if you truly felt brave in that moment. Earlier this week, I was on my phone and I was scrolling through Instagram on my feed, and I came across a quote, and it said, "The weird thing about bravery is that if you're doing it right, it feels like fear." And that post made me think back to my junior year in college. I just signed up for a 6-month internship in Nanjing, China. It was a study abroad program, and I was super excited to go on this trip. And beyond starting a mobile coffee cart, which I'll talk about a little later in this video, it was by far the boldest thing I've ever done at this point in my life. And I vividly remember all the emotions and the thoughts running through my brain as I embarked on this journey. And I specifically remember the night before, I went to school at Oklahoma State, so I was home for summer vacation for a few days, and then me and my parents road trip back down to Oklahoma, and we stayed the night at a hotel before my flight the next morning. And I remember laying in my hotel room bed, and I was feeling really good up until the point I had to go to sleep. And I remember laying there in my bed, staring at the ceiling with so much fear, so many what ifs, so many doubts, and just questions of what will this look like. So I had a short window of time I could sleep for because the plane takes off at 4 a.m. So I decided that I would turn on a movie, try to just take my mind off things, and hopefully doze off. So I picked the movie Zootopia, and if you've ever seen the movie Zootopia, it seems like one of those really cute, lighthearted children movies, but you soon realize that there's a lot of hard truths that unfold in the midst of this movie. And I found myself weeping as I identified with this bunny who was leaving its family, going to a new city to pursue being a police officer. And looking back in the moment, I often laugh because I probably looked absolutely ridiculous in that hotel room. But in the moment, that feeling and the fear I felt and the anxiety and the excitement felt so real. And then the next moment I remember is getting on the airplane. We sat on the plane for 2 additional hours while they were doing maintenance on the plane. And I thought to myself, maybe this is a sign that I can just turn back. We don't have to do this. It's not getting off to a good start. And I remember having this back and forth dialogue in my brain. And I remember when the plane took off and the wheels left the ground, I thought to myself, we are doing this. And for a second, I felt brave. And about 30 seconds later, all the fear and anxiety hit me once again. And then there was the daily fear and anxiety of having to navigate my new norm overseas. Now, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of moments of feeling like top of the mountain moments. I felt brave, I felt adventurous, I felt like I was exploring this whole new side of me. But then even in the midst of those super high mountaintop moments, there is always a little bit of fear underlying those feelings. So if you joined us the past 2 weeks, you know we've been journeying through the book of Ruth, and our kiddos are also doing that with us. And so today's theme that we'll be learning about and they're learning about is God gives us boldness. And the passage we're in this week is Ruth 3. So I'm going to read the first few verses of the passage to start us off. And so Ruth 3, it says, "One day Ruth's mother-in-law Naomi said to her, 'My daughter, I must find a home for you, where you will be well provided for.' Now Boaz, with whose women you have worked is a relative of ours. Tonight he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. Wash, put on perfume, and get dressed with your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor, but don't let him know you are there until he is finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he is lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do. In verse 5, we see that Ruth says, I will do whatever you say, Ruth answered. So she went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. So you have Naomi telling Ruth, hey, I think it's time that we find you a family. I want you to have someone that can provide for you. And she suggests Boaz because it also benefits her and helps her safeguard her family. And Naomi instructs Ruth to go down to the threshing floor and wait till Boaz has had his night and he's ate and drank and he goes to sleep, and she's supposed to follow him and lay at his feet. And Ruth agrees to do this, and she does exactly as Naomi says. And later in the passage, starting at verse 8, we see Boaz's response to Ruth. And it says, in the middle of the night, something startled the man. He turned, and there was a woman lying at his feet. Who are you? He asked. I am servant Ruth, she said. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of our family. The Lord bless you, my daughter, he replied. Your kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier. You have not run after the younger man, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask. And all the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. So if I'm being honest, guys, when I read this passage the first few times, I wasn't really for sure where I was going to go with this message. And I started reading a lot of commentaries and processing with people. And people take this passage from very different perspectives and lens when using it in their messages and just talking about the passage. But the one thing that kept coming to my mind was how bold of an act it was for Ruth to submit her full self and full vulnerability and lay at Boaz's feet, not knowing what his response would be. And from the very beginning, we see Ruth agreeing to Naomi's plan, but we don't really know what emotions Ruth felt and was feeling while executing this. We don't know if she had tension around what Naomi asked her to do. And I even think about Ruth having to go down to the threshing floor and walking into that situation. Did she know who was going to be there? Was she going to have to present a reason if she got caught of why she was there? Did she know how many people were going to be there? And as I read this passage, I wondered what emotions were going through Ruth's brain. And as a reader, it's really easy for us to see Ruth's boldness and see how it paid off for her and her family and how God blessed their future. And we can identify and celebrate her boldness and bravery. Maybe someone even look at her and say, man, that girl is fearless. I don't know if I would be able to do that. So we applaud Ruth for her boldness. But as I was reading this passage, I often wondered, did Ruth feel brave in this moment? Another thing that struck me in this passage is that there is nothing that says that Ruth heard clearly from God about moving forward with this plan. And in many passages, we see that. We see God giving his people clear direction, calling his people into bold decisions. But we have no context of that in this passage. And I wonder if Ruth felt comfort from God. And I wonder if she felt the presence and the guidance from God. Or did she feel alone? And I want us to think back to those moments that we've had to be bold. And I want to ask if you have always felt clear direction from God in those moments. And maybe now you can see God's provision in your bold act, but in the moment, did you feel him near, or did it feel lonely? And this question might seem unsettling and might make some of us uncomfortable. But to me, this is encouraging. Much like me and you, Ruth's story is messy. Ruth is relatable. And I bet if Ruth was standing in this room today, she would give us a very different perspective of this story based on her personal experience. And as I was sharing my thoughts and just processing this passage with my boyfriend Chris earlier this week, he summarized my thoughts very simply. And he said, bravery isn't necessarily the absence of fear, but pushing through the emotions. And I just absolutely love that. As I mentioned at the beginning of my message, I started a mobile coffee cart about 2 years ago. Now, this is a dream I had starting in high school, and it has been a labor of love throughout the years. It is a dream that I've prayed over, cried over, celebrated over. Any emotion around this dream I have felt. And I remember in the final months of getting to my first event, I looked at my friend and I said, what if I fail? And what if all this blows up in my face? And my friend very kindly looked at me and said, but Rachel, what if you thrive? And I think we're quick to discount ourselves and the opportunities presented in our lives because it feels scary and we don't believe we can step into those situations. We assume because fear is present that we in fact are not brave. But what if we took a little more time to sit with that fear, and what if we were bold enough to push through the fear? And in Hebrews 10:23-25, it says, so let's do it full of belief, confident that we are presentable inside and out. Let's keep a firm grip on the promises that keeps us going. He always keeps his word. Let us see how inventive we can be, encouraging love and helping out, not avoiding worshiping together as some do, but spurring each other on, especially as we see the big day approaching. Friends, do you know how many people in my life discouraged me to start my own business because they were afraid for me? I always thought that, well, that's super risky. Do you really want to do that? Or do you want to put all your eggs in one basket? Or what if you lose all your money? I got all of the negative responses. My question is, what if as a community, we helped point out and celebrate moments that we can practice being brave? What if we sat with each other, encouraged each other, pushed through the hard emotions together? What if we were those people that looked at someone and said, but what if you thrive? What if we trusted that we have companionship with a God who delights in us, and we can confidently make bold decisions knowing he is waiting to meet us in those decisions? So friend, you have the power to be brave. It isn't a characteristic you're born with. It isn't something that some people have and some people don't. It is a daily act we can choose. And it's a daily invitation we can step into. So my question to you is, how will you choose to be brave this week? And how will you encourage someone else to be brave?